So we have a system, and I'm very confident that I will be the nominee, but I'm not taking anything or any place or anyone for granted.
Even if you don't win New York?
Oh, I'm absolutely confident I will be the nominee.
Hillary Clinton on ABC's Good Morning America this morning telling George Stephanopoulos she's confident she's going to be the Democrat nominee. But Bernie Sanders has put up quite a fight. In fact, he's been winning all the most recent primaries and caucuses. Bernie says Hillary isn't confident. Instead, he says she's nervous. Now, Sanders continually does better than Mrs. Clinton in a general election matchup against all the Republican candidates. So will Bernie's campaign continue to ignite and just surprise Mrs. Clinton, perhaps blocking her once clear path to the Democratic nomination? It's a subject worth talking about with our political panel. First up, from my old stomping grounds of Raleigh, North Carolina, via Skype, we've got Republican media strategist and ad maker Marc Rotterman. And via Skype from New York City, well, it's our good friend and admitted Democrat, senior political contributor for Forbes.com, Rick Ungar. Rick, it's your party. The latest Emerson poll shows Sanders up in Wisconsin. I guess that's no surprise given the pail and shovel party there at UW-Madison. But what about Bernie making Hillary kind of feel the burn?
I think she's been feeling it, but, at the end of the day, this is about math. It's really hard to see how he sneaks in front of her. I think he will win in Wisconsin, but she'll still get nearly half the delegates because his win, I don't think, will be that large. New York, let's say he even could pull off a win, which I kind of don't think he will, but he could. Even there, again, it would be just a few points. She ends up with half the delegates. He has to do much, much, much better than that to really eat into her already substantial lead.
Marc Rotterman, we look at the Democratic Party and we see some curious things that, forgive me, I know that Rick would take issue with this, that seem less than democratic. For example, the liberal use of superdelegates, gone is the one person, one vote notion. They have a lot of votes in their hip pocket in the establishment. In the final analysis, Mark, does that just save the day for Hillary, no matter what happens in Wisconsin or New York?
It may well, but I'm not sure the fix is in. They could change their mind. I think she's conceded Wisconsin. He raised $44 million last month. He started out as a protest candidate, and now I think he is a serious candidate, and I think he's going to outperform in New York, so we'll stay tuned. I mean, people just don't trust this lady, and I think she's got a lot of negatives going into New York, particularly if he does very well in Wisconsin.
Rick, I understand there's been some talk from Hillary and her brain trust going out to remind people, wait a minute, Bernie's not even a Democrat. He's a democratic socialist.
Well, I don't think that's her point. I think her point is he's been an independent up until this time.
Well, yeah, he's not been a member of the Democratic Party. But given the volatile days we are in, where people look askance at insiders and party bosses, will this redound to Bernie's benefit? The fact that he truly is an outsider on the Democrat side. We got about 45 seconds.
Yeah, I don't think it's hurting him, JD. I don't think that's her best argument. He's running in the Democratic primary. If he wasn't a Democrat and that bothered people, they don't have to vote for him. So while I think she has some good arguments and she has gotten a lot more votes than Bernie, I don't think that's her best play.
Mark, you got anything to say about that? And the Democratic Socialist, about 15 seconds here, sir.
Look at the crowds he's getting. I think people don't differentiate. The young people are coming out for him. I think he's got a heck of a base working for him.
Well, it's worth noting that he's got some working for him, and we got some working with you guys, too, to the point where we want you to stay just where you are, because there is plenty to discuss on the eve of the Wisconsin primary, and we will do so with Mark and Rick as we continue. But in the interim, this note, you heard what they had to say about Bernie and Hillary. I'm interested in what you think about that. Send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments or go to Twitter where our handle is at NewsmaxPrime.
Well, under our laws currently, that is not something that exists. the unborn person doesn't have constitutional rights.
Hillary Clinton on NBC's Meet the Press yesterday, you just heard her say the unborn don't have constitutional rights. Is that going to help or hurt her heading into November? Let's talk about it as we continue the discussion with our political panel. Skyping in from Raleigh, North Carolina, Marc Rotterman, the veteran Republican media strategist and ad maker, and from New York City, the co-host of Steele and Ungar on Sirius XM's POTUS channel, Rick Ungar. POTUS, of course, the abbreviation for President of the United States. Rick?
No, it's now Politics of the United States.
Oh, there, yes, but, well, you deprived me of the transition into this.
Sorry.
Which is the presidency and Hillary, right. And I guess the Democratic Party has just become, I'll use the euphemism, so stridently pro-choice, it won't hurt her there, but in the general election, is that going to help Hillary?
Well, I'll tell you where she got in trouble. Everybody seems to be tripping over their answers on this issue. She got in trouble not by saying that the unborn don't have constitutional rights, but she said the unborn person. Now, if Hillary's acknowledging that an unborn fetus is a person, she's certainly at odds with her own statements and with statements others make when making the case to allow for abortion. As my partner Michael Steele likes to say, if the unborn don't have constitutional rights, then how come if you shoot and kill a pregnant woman, you get charged with 2 murders? So this is, that's where she stepped in it. So you now got her stepping in it on her side. You've got Trump stepping in it on his side. None of them seem to know what they want to say.
Well, let's talk to the veteran Republican media strategist. Marc, if you were producing an ad against Hillary, would that soundbite become the centerpiece? Could that be used effectively in an ad?
I certainly think it could, and I think it could drive out the evangelical base in the general election, no question about it. When I agree with Steve, when she said it was a person, that's where she really stepped in it. And I think she defeated her own message there, and I think it will come back to hurt her. But this has been a week where everybody has kind of stepped in on the abortion question. Finally, you now have Trump having the Reagan position, rape, incest in the life of the mother. But clearly, it took him a long time to get there.
So it is unanimous with our 2 panelists, both Rick in New York and Marc in Raleigh, that both Hillary and Donald have had difficulty with the question of abortion. Let's talk more about difficulties away from the roar of the grease paint, the smell of the crowd. A New York Times report claims that RNC Chairman Reince Priebus is vowing not to give the Trump campaign control over the party if the Donald wins the Republican nomination. Now, Marc, you correct me if I'm wrong. I don't recall this ever being the situation. The nominee becomes the titular head of the party and basically has the run of the place, does he not?
That's absolutely correct, JD. And frankly, what they need is a general chairman now to be appointed prior to whoever wins the convention so that we have a fair arbiter at the RNC. I mean, in the past, Ronald Reagan appointed Drew Lewis right after the convention, the deputy chairman, to watch the store for the Republican nominee. You cannot not turn over some of the apparatus of the party to help elect Donald Trump if he is the nominee. I think it's unprecedented, and I think he's listening to too many insiders up in Washington.
Now, I know, Rick, you watch this with great delight to see the fights going on in the Republican Party. Especially with the kind of bumpy road Debbie Wasserman Schultz has had in the past. But I guess over there at the DNC, it's just Clinton Inc. from top to bottom, is it not?
Well, I think it has been since the start of the campaign, something that has troubled a lot of us, even those of us who are okay with Hillary Clinton. But I do have to say on the Republican side, this came as absolutely no shock. Reince Priebus knows that the minute Trump gets control of the party, he's out of a job. So whether it happens at the stage of the nomination or if Trump should win the election, Reince is going to be looking.
Well, we always look for insights and analysis from you two gentlemen, and you offered it aplenty this evening. Marc Rotterman in Raleigh, Rick Ungar in New York City. Gentlemen, you have our thanks. You heard what they had to say. Agree or disagree? Send your comments to me at newsmaxtv.com/comments or via Twitter at Newsmax Prime. When we come back, Hollywood and Hillary